Everybody, we are going to present student teachers' perspectives of the use of noticing related to classroom observation in a BA in ELT in Mexico. We are from the University of Guanajuato. This is Dr. Marta Lengeling, Dr. Amanda Wilson, and Dr. Irasema Mora Pablo.
Okay, let's get started with a presentation. We're looking at the perspectives of student teachers regarding noticing and classroom observation. These are students in a BA and ELT in Mexico. Here we look at how classroom observation can be a difficult experience for student teachers. They're not quite sure of themselves as teachers. Many are beginning to teach, or some have just begun to teach. Classroom observation is not really clear for a lot of beginning teachers, and so they need to know a lot of information, and they need to look at different aspects. These aspects are what to observe, what is needed for observation, how the supervisor or the observer can observe what they do. What is effective feedback? Many times they do not have feedback in previous observations. Also, we look at the roles of both the supervisor, observer, and the student teacher. Now, the basis for this is what is good teaching, and there's much literature about what good teaching is. But to recognize, interpret, and evaluate these aspects is complicated. And so this is what we wanted to try to expose to our students, these intricacies of what good teaching is about, what you can see within observation. So let's look at some of the activities that we used within this class. This is a class on classroom observation. We used noticing, and it's derived from self-reflection and good practices. There were activities such as what is a good teacher, good teaching, and this was based upon the students' opinions and experiences. They also had readings about this topic. They had videos to look at, little video clips of movies or also of other teachers teaching. What we wanted them to do was to understand the good practices of teaching and use this as a basis for classroom observation. So if we look at observation, this means to notice is to observe, realize, or attend to. A term used to indicate the act of observing or recognizing something. So it's important to see something, to observe it, to realize it. For noticing to take place, there are three aspects. And the first one is to identifying what is important or noteworthy about a classroom situation. This may be something that they see and they think is interesting. Then they make connections between the specifics of classroom interactions and the broader principles of teaching and learning. Lastly, they use what they know about the context to reason about these classroom interactions. So for our research, we had the research question of what are the perspectives of BA and TESOL students in a course on classroom observation that focuses on noticing and reflecting. We used a qualitative paradigm and a number of techniques. These techniques included classroom observation feedback forms, ethnographic notes, a questionnaire, student journals, and lastly, a focus group. We had 22 participants in the BA and TESOL, and they were taking the course of classroom observation, and this follows another course of supervised teaching practicum Most of them are mainly EFL teachers that are novice. Some have had previous experience, but not a lot of experience. We had 8 males and 14 women, 22 to 35 years old. Some of them we considered that they were fall into the job teachers, meaning they taught before they began this degree program. The video reflection for noticing, here we have examples of the techniques we used, and here is the reflection from the students about what was going on with their videotaped class. Another type of technique that we used are ethnographic notes, and here you can see an example of one student who goes through the process of writing ethnographic notes of another peer that they observed. And they did a series of 4 ethnographic notes through the course. The next is the example of the questionnaire that we gave our students. Here we have a journal entry. They were guided journal entries. We would give them questions about the observation process. Many of our students would talk about that they were observed before by different people in the educational community, but they did not receive feedback. Now for the data, we have 3 different categories. The first one is planting seeds. Classroom observation is complicated. Next, nurturing the garden, becoming aware, reflecting, and acting. Lastly, we have flowers are blooming. How much have you learned after this class? For the first one, classroom observation is complicated. A number of our students would talk about how they felt it was complex, that they learned this process. We felt how it is to be an observer, what specific elements you have to look at and have to analyze in order to observe and give good feedback. Now I know how complex it is. I notice that observation is not only about using our eyes, it deals with identifying, analyzing, and reacting. Now we look at the 3 parts of aware, becoming aware, reflecting, and acting. And so for becoming aware, we have 2 pieces of data. Being observed has helped me to notice these aspects, those aspects I cannot notice myself when teaching. Sometimes we are observed but we do not get feedback from the observer. Another student says, I have noticed that observation is a helpful tool that allows teachers to be aware of aspects of teaching they might ignore before observation. Regarding reflecting, we have a number of students who comment, observation without reflection is useless. Reflection takes time. For the video observation, it was even easier to reflect because I had the opportunity to watch it over, to stop the video, to go back. And lastly, we have a student who says that observation is a way to solve different problems we face within the classroom. The next part is acting. For me, observation is an action which involves looking at or seeing aspects that need to be paid special attention to. Another student mentions first analyzing all the good or bad aspects about my teaching, and then based upon this, trying to find a way to redo, redapt, or improve. So here we see the student wanting to act upon different aspects in his or her teaching. Finally, we have how much have you learned? One student said, I felt very proud of myself. I used to see observation as evaluation, and now through this process, this student says it can create opportunities of self-reflection. So they learned how to self-reflect about their own teaching. Another student, when I started to teach, I just had in mind the way in which my best English teachers taught me. Every class, every day, I have to put into practice new ideas and resources. It is like life is asking me, how much have you learned? Another two people, being observed influenced my development as a teacher since I could become aware of aspects of my teaching that I needed to change. And then we have a student who says, when you get observed, you don't get to stay in your comfort zone. So they had to move on with their reflection and look at things differently and not be in their comfort zone. So now that we have seen the data, let's look at some of the implication. What we're advocating here is that we can use noticing to become aware of what's in the classroom. You can reflect and ultimately acting upon this information within our teaching practice. This is important for teacher educators, observers, coordinators, program designers, and students who are in a program. The intention is to show how the strengths of individuals emerge, but because they fit into, not because they fit into a prescribed manner of teaching, but because what they learn and what they are able to notice in their teaching practice. So we're going to finish with one last piece of data from a student. And this person says, I am learning, I'm reflecting about who I am as a teacher, as a person, as an undergraduate student already working. After learning about observation in depth, I have become more my own observer. And so this is really important that they say, I've become my own observer. I am more careful about what I say and how I act within the classroom. Okay, we'd like to just finish up our presentation. This is the class of the students within the class that we had, and we've also included the references. Thank you for watching this video.
Thank you very much for joining us for this video. If you would like to read more about our research, it's available in our chapter in this book by Routledge, published by Routledge. Thank you for joining us.